The candle was still intact, the cake untouched. At 11:47 p.m., the message came. Forgot. Sorry. Happy B-Day. She didn't cry. Not yet. She just sat there, hands in her lap, asking herself something no one had prepared her to answer. How does love vanish like that? Even after everything, Julia still loved him. Even after the silence. Even after being left in a space where there used to be two bodies. And now only echo remained. But that love wasn't loud anymore. It didn't beg to come back, didn't knock on doors. It was a love that walked barefoot inside her. Quiet. Constant. Never asking for attention, but never leaving either. She didn't tell anyone. Because how do you explain that a feeling still lives inside you, even after absence has become routine? Even after absence has become yourself? Do we make a mistake by still feeling, or only when we pretend we don't? She didn't want him back. She didn't want to rewrite the story. She just wanted to understand how to move forward without having to erase everything that still pulsed in her chest. This is the story of a woman who never got a clear ending, but found a quiet beginning. A story about the small deaths love causes, and the seeds that grow right after. If you've ever felt ashamed for loving someone who hurt you, or if you still carry that love in your jacket pocket where no one else can see, stay here, because maybe, in Julia's silence, you'll hear something your own heart has been trying to say. The first time they met, it was raining. That kind of soft, gray rain that makes everything quieter. Julia had that kind of silence in her too. A silence that came not from emptiness, but from feeling too much for too long. She met him in a cafe that smelled of warm bread and old books. He asked to sit across from her. She said yes, without thinking. He talked about a dream he had. Spoke of dreams, even the ones that felt silly. And he listened, or seemed to. Sometimes it felt like he was collecting pieces of her. But she didn't want to see that yet. They danced, clumsy, joyful. Two people stumbling into each other, laughing as if every misstep was part of the rhythm. But not everything was rhythm. A phone flipped face down. A compliment that sounded memorized. A pause too long when she opened up. Still. She leaned in. She smiled. She believed. A book he was reading. And said something that made her laugh in a way she hadn't in months. The next day, he texted. Then again. And again. And soon, it became a rhythm. Long messages, sudden calls, slow glances. He said she was intense, that being near her made things feel more alive. She believed him. Because when you've longed for love, you don't always question the first hand that offers it gently. She opened the quietest parts of herself, shared stories she hadn't told anyone in years. How often do we confuse being welcomed with being accepted only in pieces? But hope has a habit of drowning hesitation. At first, it was small things, shorter replies, messages left unread, a weekend plan canceled last minute. Work, he said. Tired, he said. And of course she believed. But slowly, his presence began to stretch thin. He was there, but already leaving. She shrank herself to fit the new shape of their silence, wrote messages, deleted them, laughed less, measured her voice. When she asked if something was wrong, he said, "You're imagining things. You're being dramatic again." And that word, again, hit her like broken glass in her throat. She began to doubt herself, her tone, her instincts, her right to feel anything at all. He wasn't cruel, just increasingly absent, which somehow was worse. She held on, like we do when we mistake fading light for the end of day, when really, it's just the beginning of night. And when you start disappearing to keep someone, how long until there's nothing left of you? She tried. The way people do when they think effort might bring love back. She changed her hair, stopped wearing the lipstick he didn't like, laughed less, gave more, apologized for things she didn't do. She even defended his distance, to herself. Then came her birthday. She cleaned the house, bought her favorite cake, chocolate with sprinkles, put on the perfume he once said he loved, and waited. 6 p.m. Nothing. 8 p.m. Still nothing. 10 p.m. The candle untouched, the room quiet. At 11:47 p.m. Forgot. Sorry. Happy B-Day. No punctuation, no name, no voice, just silence and a message. She stared at the screen, paused, and replied, "It's okay." But it wasn't. And the worst part? She was getting used to that. She cried in the bathroom, stopped mentioning his name to her friends, wrote letters she never sent. Until one night, rereading those letters, she realized they weren't about him anymore. They were about her. About the woman she was losing trying to hold on to someone who had already let go. How many versions of yourself did you leave behind just to see if someone would stay? He didn't say goodbye. He just stopped being part of her days. No closure, no explanation, just absence. She still checked her phone in the morning, before her eyes even opened. Reflex. The screen was always quiet. The days heavier. The air thicker. She moved like someone underwater, not drowning, but never quite breathing. She listened to sad songs, not to suffer, but to feel seen, because the lyrics knew what she couldn't say. She still loved someone who had already left. Her friends tried. "You'll get over it. One day you'll laugh about this." But she didn't want to laugh yet. She wanted to understand. Where did it go wrong? When did love turn into silence? What made her so easy to leave? Nights passed with her eyes wide open, waiting for answers to arrive from the ceiling. Until one night, she wrote, "I still love you, and I'm tired of hating myself for it." And then she cried. Not the kind of crying that breaks you, the kind that clears space. And what if grief isn't about the person who left, but about the part of you that went missing trying to hold on to them? If this story is making sense to you, if it resonated with you in any way, subscribe to the channel so we can keep telling stories like this. And before we continue, leave your like. Thank you for your support. Those words she wrote didn't leave her. I still love you, and I'm tired of hating myself for it. They stayed. Not loud, just there. Like a seed that hadn't bloomed, but refused to die. A few days later, something shifted. She went for a walk. No destination, no headphones, no makeup, just her body, the wind, and a silence that didn't hurt. She passed a flower stand, stopped, bought a small bouquet. No one to give it to. She bought it for herself. At home, she painted her nails red. Not just red, loud red, and stared at her hands like they belonged to someone brave. She returned to therapy, opened books that once felt too heavy, changed the sheets, moved the furniture, took the bracelet he left behind, and placed it in a box high on the shelf. She still missed him, but it wasn't an ache anymore, just a soft space, a room where something else might grow. And what if the pain you feel now is just space being cleared for something better to arrive? She didn't become cold, didn't close off, didn't promise to never love again. She was still sensitive, still cried during films, still wrote unsent letters, still had quiet days. But now, she listened to herself. She began to like what she saw in the mirror, not because she changed, but because she stopped looking at herself through the eyes of someone who never truly saw her. She bought a dress, colorful, bold, the kind he never liked, and wore it like a flag, like a declaration. This is my body. This is mine. One afternoon, she walked past that cafe, the one where it all began. She hadn't stepped inside since. Always crossed the street, looked away. But that day, she walked in, ordered her favorite, sat by the window. Same chair, new air. And then she saw him. Daniel, 2 tables ahead. Their eyes met. He didn't look away. Neither did she. Her heart raced. So many questions rose up. Why did you vanish? Was it that hard to say goodbye? But she didn't get up, didn't ask. Because in that moment she knew. She didn't need his answers anymore. She already had her own. She smiled, lowered her gaze, and stirred her coffee. Later that night, she wrote, I don't want to be loved for disappearing. I want to be seen when I'm most present. And for the first time in a long time, she didn't cry after writing. And what if real healing isn't when you forget, but when you remember and choose peace anyway? Love doesn't fail just because it ends. It only fails when we forget what it came to teach us. And Julia, she remembered. She remembered how she used to shrink to fit. How she apologized for feeling too much. How she spoke softer, not because she wanted to, but because she thought maybe then she'd be easier to love. She remembered how she twisted herself into patience until she barely recognized her own voice. She also remembered the silence, the weight of being with someone who used to look at her and now barely looked at all. And in that silence, she met herself again. Not all at once, but piece by piece, in the way she stirred her coffee, in the way she no longer waited for replies, in the way she walked home without checking her phone. Today, when someone asks her about him, she doesn't flinch, doesn't fake a smile, doesn't sigh with regret. She just says, he was important, but he's not mine anymore. And then changes the subject, because the love that still lives in her, it doesn't belong to him. It never did. It belongs to her now. And if you, listening to this, still love someone who hurt you, don't rush to erase it. Don't punish your heart for staying open. That love existed, it mattered, and it taught you something. Maybe what's left isn't bitterness. Maybe what's left is strength. A quiet strength. One that doesn't shout. One that makes you breathe deeper, walk lighter, choose softer. A strength that doesn't need to explain itself, because it simply is. I didn't lose myself. I was just finding my way back. And what if the end of love isn't the end of you, but the beginning of the person you've always been afraid to become?